Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the chat. Evening, Lazarus.
Hi, Don. How are you? Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
I guess he's having a problem getting in. We're going to talk about bees, making splits, and selling your bees tonight. So I hope everybody enjoys it. And if you have a question, what you need to do is check. You can type it in, or you can get on camera. First thing you need to do in the springtime is go to your hives. Evening, Lazarus.
Hi, Don. How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good.
Looks like we're gonna have a full house. If you got hives, you need to go through them in springtime. Make sure that if you got queen cells, you're not just scraping them off, and you should be making splits. Bees are going to multiply and they're going to split on you. So what you need to do is take advantage of that and market your splits. Each hive can be split 2 to 3 times. The best way to sell your splits or your nukes is join a bee club. If you don't want to join a bee club, you can always advertise on Craigslist or just word of mouth. I mean, that'll sell a lot of your nukes, and it helps pay for your hobby. Sometimes hobbies get to be expensive. And we've got quite a few people here to do tonight. Welcome to the chat, and don't be afraid to ask any kind of question, bee related, and my co-host will help guide you through it.
Hopefully.
Well, hopefully you're learning something about bees here too.
I got to go back and listen a second time through because doing all the moderating, I don't pay much attention to some of the chat sometimes. It's all good stuff.
Let's see. Someone wants to know if I have a hive, can it be split 2 or 3 times? Is that early spring? Yes. As soon as you got queen cells or you get the hive crowded, they're going to make queen cells. And that's the best opportunity right then to make a split. And if the cell is sealed, all you need is 1 frame of honey with a sealed cell, and you could start a nuke. You don't need to add more population to it until after the queen comes back and starting to lay. That way you know she's going to stay. Evening, Kirk.
Hi, Kirk. Hi. Did you have a question for Don, Kirk?
Yeah, I kind of mimic what the question is on the side here, where I had a strong hive a couple weeks ago. I was in it. There was some brood in there, and it was chilly, so I just left them alone. Today it's nice and warm out here in California, so I opened it up, and there was nothing. Maybe a small football-sized cluster of bees, no queen. I broke the 10 frame box back down to a nuke and threw some larvae from the hive next to it in there, and I'm hoping for the best. The bees just left.
That's strange, but usually if they leave, there's something. You got either a high mite count or you've got beetles in there, but you've probably done the best thing, dropping them down to a 5 frame box. And I would have dropped a frame of open brood in there. Pull it right out of the center of one of your good hives. That way you're going to be able to make a good queen. And the hive will survive. It's more than likely that they swarmed on you probably October or even November. We've had an awful lot of swarms this year, October and November, which is rare. Most of the swarms is usually summer or springtime. So the weather's been so warm, bees have been populating, and people are making the mistake of putting pollen patties on there. So all that does is increase the populations real fast. And if you happen to get in an area where you got cold, temperature drops on you, you're going to lose a lot of bees because they're going to tighten up the cluster. And then anything on the outside of that cluster is going to end up getting chilled, and it's called chilled brood. So they're going to end up hauling all that out is just basically dead mortality.
Yeah, I did. I put some open brood in from the hive next to it, to help it along, and hopefully, they can make a queen cell out of it. But we've already had swarm here in California. Our swarm, I got 2 calls off our swarm last week. I didn't actually see them, but we got the first calls coming in.
Well, each part of the country is going to be different. This where I'm living, I'm at the edge of the mountains, foothills actually, and we're actually having a warmer winter than normal. So don't let that throw you off. I've made the mistake about 7 years ago. Basically, we had the same situation. We had real warm weather. Today was almost 70, and I made the mistake of making a bunch of splits. So depending on where you live, until Easter gets here, you don't know if you're going to get a good freeze. I made 75 splits, hoping that I could get a jump and everything, and I lost all 75. For the main reason is the temperature. We had a record freeze at Easter. So I use Easter as a marker where you can make your splits and judge, accordingly as far as your temperature. Mother Nature will always give you a surprise or throw a wrench into it.
Yeah, when you think you got to figure it out, the bees think of something else.
Right. They'll teach you.
All right, Don, you have a question from Ed here. Can you see all of it?
Let me see. I see part of it here. He has lost about half to 2/3 of the population. I don't know. It sounds like maybe Ed might have got a cold night on him. It's hard to say. I don't know exactly where he's from. If that's Ed from Pennsylvania, he could have had a couple cold nights, and it's basically doing what I just got done saying, that if it gets really cold, they cluster up, and anything on the outside of that cluster gets chilled. I think that might be Ed from Pennsylvania. I've talked to him several times already.
Yeah, he says they did have a few bad nights.
Yeah, that'll do it every time.
Oh, here's Joe calling in.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Don. Hey, I got into my bees today. It was 77 here today.
How'd you fit inside that box?
Well, it was hard, but I did. All 12 hives look really good.
Good.
Actually, they got about as many stores as they went into winter with.
Well, if you keep them in a single or a 5-frame nuke, you'd be surprised how they'll go through the winter a whole lot better than if you had a double deep, because of the area they have to heat in there. They have to eat a lot more to heat the same area.
Well, here's my question. Like I say, they had plenty of bees. They covered all the frames in the 5-frame, both sides, and plenty of bees. I didn't see any larvae at all. All the queens are still in there. Seen all the queens, but I didn't see that first larva or brood at all. Is that something to be concerned about?
Well, if you've had cold nights now, they could be pulling out that the eggs or the larva. 1 and 2 day, 3-day-old larvas. They could be pulling it out. They know when the weather is right for them to feed them.
Well, it was 0 down here a week ago, so yeah.
Well, that's, at least you still got good populations. They're going to let the queen will keep laying. They'll keep going at it, and they're not going to develop it out until they know it's, the weather's fine.
Okay, I just wonder if everybody's talking about, and you talked about, always got some brood in there at all times, and I didn't. Of course, there's so many bees, they could have been some brood that I didn't see.
Well,
I didn't rake them around.
It's not a good idea to get in there too much in the wintertime and start poking around, because you run that risk of damaging that queen. And if you bump that queen accidentally pulling a frame up, then you're stuck during the winter. But another 2 to 3 weeks, you should be in pretty good shape up there.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Don.
Sure.
Okay, no other questions yet. If anybody has any questions, please post them or log in so you can talk directly with Don. We're up to 39 viewers, Don. I think that's a little bit more than last week, I think.
Well, we're cooking. We must be doing something right. People has to get over that fear of getting on camera and the fear of basically asking questions.
Yeah.
I have more luck when I have one or two students if I do one-on-one type classes, or if there's not too many. People don't want to ask a question and don't want to have people look at them like maybe that's a dumb question or I shouldn't ask that. But if you don't ask it, you're not going to get an answer. And that's how you learn.
No such thing as a dumb question.
That's right. I mean, I've made so many mistakes, and I'm trying to pass on my mistakes to where other people don't make them. And the main thing is, if you got hives right now, you shouldn't have to be buying bunches of packages and queens. You know, you need to learn to make your own queens, make splits, make increases. That's how you learn.
Daryl's calling in.
Hey, Daryl.
Oh, chipmunk's going again.
It's been a while since Daryl's been down here. We getting some feedback on Daryl here. You might have to refresh. I think if you're on a cell phone, it's having problems on cell phones. Daryl come all the way down here from Arkansas to come visit me. He's coming back again, I guess, if I haven't bored him. Yeah, we have poor internet signals.
For some reason, the questions aren't updating on the left, but I can see them on the right. So I'm going to try reading them off to you.
Okay.
McCarthy wants to know oh shit, this thing keeps moving on me. What dimensions do you build your 8-frame deep and super?
My 8-frame deeps are 9 7/8 high, 13 3/4 wide, and the side pieces are all the same, 19 1/8. And for the medium nukes, the medium supers is 6 13 16 high, and it's 13 3/4 wide and 19 1/8 on the side pieces. And
Scotty wants to know, his 5-year-old daughter wants to know how the pollen sticks to bees.
They have little baskets on their legs, and that's how they pack them full and they fly with them.
Okay, this thing keeps moving. What was the next one? Couple of questions from DJ Nichols. If you're wintering using a 5-frame boxes, how are you splitting them so quickly in the spring?
Well, the main reason you're splitting them is because they're in a 5-frame box and they can create a lot of heat. It's the same principle as a nursery. When the nursery is warmer than any other place in the hospital, they raise the temperature so they can get the brood up. So you make brood faster in a 5-frame box than you would in an 8-frame or a 10-frame because you have more square inches of area they have to heat.
Okay.
Wade's he's trying to get in, but he can't get his video to work.
Okay.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, Don, got a question for you.
Okay.
I've got medium and deeps nuke. 2 sections. They're booming with bees right now. Is there, I don't see any drone frame or drone cell, so I'm just kind of wondering why they would be so heavy in numbers right now.
Well, that just goes back to what I just said. A nuke will actually build up so much faster because of the heat. They're building up the heat and they're building numbers. So if you're not seeing any drones, I would look at any other hives. You need drones to get mated. I would keep an eye on them. I would go in those all the way to the bottom about every 12 to 14 days and check every frame everywhere you can look for cells. Because as soon as they get a little bit crowded, they're going to make queen cells. And a 5-frame nuke, you can split it 3-4 times easily.
Okay. Got another question for you. I
Okay.
caught a small swarm late last summer, early fall. They made it through the winter, but the numbers are real low. They've got a queen, a little bit of brood, and they have stores. Should I do anything to build the numbers up there?
Well, if I would go in the hive or the nuke, and if you see eggs and you see the queen is laying, I would take a frame from one of your strongest hives and find a frame that you can actually see the bees hatching. Get one that's preferably full of sealed brood, and you can look at the frame. You can see them cutting the cells to coming out. They're hatching. That's the best frame to put in there. That will get your population up within 24 hours to 36 hours.
Okay. Thanks, Don.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, let's see who we got.
Diego's trying to get in.
I think he's got a poor internet signal too.
Hello, Don.
Hello?
Hello, Don. I live in Switzerland. It's 2 a.m. in the morning.
I'm keeping you up late, huh?
It's okay. Listen, we had, like you in the United States, a very warm winter.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to you was, since we probably did not have a brood pause, we might have a very high count of Varroa. So have you noticed high counts of Varroa in your stock? And what would you be applying as measures to reduce Varroa in this kind of situation right now? Thank you.
If you got bees flying right now in midday, anything above 55 degrees, you should have bees flying. I would give them oxalic acid, vaporized, and I would go back again in 2 to 3 weeks. More likely 2 weeks, because you want to break that mite cycle. And if you think or you have a high mite count, that's going to be 100% kill, and it's a lot cheaper to do. And I'm pretty sure that you have vaporizing in Switzerland, because all through the United Kingdom, just about everywhere they're using it now, and it's 100%. It's the cheapest way to treat those bees. If you don't get your mite counts down, when the population starts getting up, they're going to abandon the hive.
Okay, thanks. I was thinking about maybe using some wintergreen or tea tree oil also in fondant mixed, just
your wintergreen is not going to do nothing for mites. It won't kill them. It retards them if you feed it as syrup, because they're going to feed that into the brood. So the mites are going to be a little bit less reluctant to lay or go into those cells, but it's not good as a kill. You could use it in a fogger, but I would basically use a vaporizer, because that's 100%. Or you could put thymol in the hive. You could mix that up with mineral oil and put it on paper towels if you don't have access to a fogger. That works very well too.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, Thomas has got a question for you there I posted.
Okay. He's got 2 full hives, double nuke hive. Everybody's going to nukes. I guess people are starting to listen to me. The nukes do better. And he wants to know if he should buy queens. I'm more for people experimenting around and learning to make their own stuff. Buying bees is good if you're just getting started. I would like to see people trying to raise their own queens. I mean, that's the whole idea, is learning to keep bees, not have to depend on buying bees all the time. Keith must have thought of something new again.
Yeah. Always, Don. The next 2 weeks, what are you doing in your Beeyard?
What am I doing in my Beeyard? Well, right now we're building a lot of foundation, and we're going to start hanging foundation here in the next week or two. So we got to get at least 500 to 1,000 frames with wax in them, get them ready, start setting nukes up. We'll start dumping packages in 20th to 21st of March. we're going to be doing a week of installing 200 to 300 packages. So we got several yards to build.
Okay, thanks a bunch.
Okay, and the biggest problem we're having is we can't build hives and nukes fast enough. The market is so much. That's why I thought I would do a little thing on making nukes and selling nukes, because when you think you can't sell a nuke or two, there'll be a dozen people asking you for them. And nukes are going out of sight right now. Monday, I had a man here from Washington State, and he was paying $235 for a nuke.
Wow.
So bees are getting more and more scarce.
That's all I'm building right now is nukes.
Right. Well, you listen to Joe. I mean, a lot of people is switching over to a lot of things that I've been telling them for 10, 15 years now. People that run double deep 10 frame, they've gone to 8 frame, and people that run double deeps or even 2 supers of honey on there, they're going with 5 frame nukes and going through the winter with much better losses than they did with the bigger boxes. It's simple common sense. The square inches inside that hive, it takes more bees to heat it. They have to eat more honey to create the heat. So they basically eat themselves out of house and home.
Don, I'm about the same latitude as you. I'm in Northeast Mississippi. When do you start to see swarms?
Well, it just depends on every year. I've seen the earliest ones last week in March, but we have to have a lot of warm weather. We have to have a lot of pollen coming in. And this is a strange year. I mean, last year was strange, but we're going in this year really warm. So I'm probably going to be expecting a lot more swarms earlier. And beekeeper wants to know, when do I use pollen patties? I'm not a big fan of pollen patties for the simple reason is I don't know where the pollen comes from. And if you look at your beehive, and if they're bringing pollen in, there's no need to substitute it. Now you're buying pollen from people you don't have any history of, and you don't know if it's radiated, if it's coming from a hive that might have some type of disease, and you're going to put it in your hive. So bees pretty much take care of themselves. It's beekeepers getting in there trying to alter too many things that's causing problems. James, go ahead.
Hey Don, I wanted to know what do you thought about what are your thoughts about using a cardboard for the micro nukes, using cardboard box instead of building those out?
For your own use, I don't know. It's very debatable. I don't care one bit about cardboard nukes. One main reason is if people come with a cardboard nukes, they don't fit close enough to frames. They actually wobble back and forth. You run high risk of them killing queens in there. Second, most of them nuke boxes that are cardboard are wax sprayed, and they cause the hive to start swarming to overheat. Where a wood box, it's a lot more cooler for the bees, and if there is any moisture from them breathing in there, the wood wicks it away from them.
And what wood do you use? Because you don't have so much weight, you don't need the same heavy duty wood that we use in the 10 frame boxes. So I'm wondering if you use a different size, a different type, different thickness of wood.
Well, you could use about any kind of thickness really that you wanted. When we shipped, we used to use 1/4 inch plywood on the sides, but I have a sawmill, so basically what we're doing is we're using 3/4 on the ends so we can put our rabbits in there. And if we have to ship nukes, we're going with either 1/2 inch or 5/8. It cuts down on the weight, but you could go with 3/8 very well. You just have to put extra staples in it to hold the box together. And
3/8 on the side and then 3/4 on the ends?
Yeah, I use 3/4 wood on the end. And then you want to make sure that you put a full 3/4 inch rabbit, and you want to make those boxes 9 7/8 high. That gives you clearance on the bottom of the frame, gives you clearance on the top, and you don't have a whole lot of trouble with your queens being shipped. Now, a standard nuke that we use out here is a little bit different than a nuke that we ship. We make those a little narrower, and the frames actually fit in there tight, so the frames don't sit like this and then go back and forth like this. We actually, I believe it's 8.5 inches is what the width on the shipping nuke. and a standard nuke, we make them 9 1/4. And that's basically a standard measurement we use. And there's space, if you looked at it, there's space between the frames. If you was to push all the frames from one side to the other, it's bigger. And that's to put the queen cage between the frames. That's what that's designed for. Same thing with a 10 frame or 8 frame. Each thing has got a reason for it.
All right. Thanks very much.
Evening, Mike.
Enjoy.
Go ahead, Mike. You're on.
He's talking to you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Mike.
Okay. I can better
Go
hear
ahead.
you. Microphone's not working or whatever. Now, I'm from up here in West Tennessee, a little bit northwest of you or whatever. Been watching you on this, and my daughter here is trying to figure out how to do this because it's way above my head.
Well, you were right there with me.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about it. I'm in the same boat because I have no idea what's going on here.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have Liza's help me out here, and I've had other people for the last few years help me. I'm not a high-tech person, so I'm struggle with all these chats, but I sit here trying to pass on as much information as I possibly can get out there.
Well, I agree. You do pass on a lot. I've learned a lot watching your videos, a lot more than I've got from anybody else, put it that way.
No, thank you. I must be doing something right.
Evidently. You're a wax making. I've been doing that using the board, and I took a stainless steel pan and just set on my wife's cook stove and heat the wax up and get it to the right temperature and just dip it like that and just making foundation without any indentions in it. The only thing is just I've just been cutting like a inch strip and just putting it on top of the frames like that.
That'll work. Now, if you're doing it on your wife's stove, be sure you have water in that pan. Don't do just plain wax.
I heard you saying that, and I have never put water in it, so that's something to learn.
Well, you know a candle burns.
Yes.
And once you get that wax to a certain temperature on a stove, it'll flash over on you.
Got you.
So I would run a minimum of 1 inch to 2 inches of water in the bottom of that. And you want to keep your wax about 178 to 180 degrees.
About 180 is what I was using, a little thermal thermometer and pointing it at it and making sure that it come out. Yep. And it seems to work real good. I mean, I was able to release the sheets off and, make big flat sheets. And then I just took a pizza cutter and cut them up in like inch long strips and put them in my frames. Yep. It works real good.
You must have watched my videos.
Yeah, it did. And that's where I learned it. And then I used the monofilament line to carry them down straight because, like I said, you can't make a bee do it. You got to sort of convince him that's what he's got to do.
If you put those 1 inch strips between 2 frames that's already drawn out, they'll pretty much draw them straight. The fishing lining there is a little additional. It gives it a little more strength if you're going to ship a nuke. That way they won't bust, they won't break down on you. And then also you can cut queen cells out. If you got wire in there, you can't cut queen cells out.
Right. That's what I started out using foundation that has that plastic, and I decided that didn't work real good. So I went back to doing it like this and letting them make their own or buying foundation from somewhere like Man Lake or whatever.
Well, if you could recycle your own wax, I think your bees are going to be a lot healthier for the simple reason is you have no history of the wax you buy from any major company. If there's people out there that's got some problems with their bees and they melt stuff down, it could be passed on to you. And that was my main reason to start making my own foundation, to know what's in the wax, keep all the chemicals out that I possibly can.
I hope someday to be able to afford, have enough bees to afford the wax mill and purchase one from you or whatever. But right now I hadn't got but like 9 hives and just basically been producing honey, not trying to sell bees or anything like that.
Well, those 9 hives, you could basically take those 9 hives and go to 50 the first time you split them. Don't be afraid to split. That's where people make the mistake. Keep them crowded. Let them make queen cells. Once you have a queen cell, all you need is a frame of honey and shake some bees into your box. See, you're not risking no brood. You don't have to worry about brood getting chilled. If you got one queen cell or two queen cells on a frame, you put that in a 5-frame box and shake a frame of bees in with it. They'll keep that cell warm. You don't need pollen. You don't need nothing. They're not feeding nothing. They're taking care of a queen.
Just keeping her warm, basically, incubate it and get it back.
That's all it is.
Well, we got 65 degrees here right now. I don't know how warm y'all were today, but it's warm up here.
We got close to 70 today, which was nice.
I went out and watched them a while, and and they are bringing pollen in and really working. This heat's got them out and got them activity. But I was hoping, and I've also got an avenue this year to sort of an unlimited amount of sugar. It's for what I need anyway, the unlimited amount. I got a guy that works at a factory that they make candies and stuff, and he gets me a 55-gallon barrel anytime I want it. So
that's stock up on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Where is that coming from, Little Debbie?
No, I can't think the name of the.
Is it Mars?
No, J. Hunkerford Smith.
Yeah,
I think they make ice cream toppings and things of that nature.
Yeah. If you can get a hookup like that, you have unlimited amount of sugar. You should have unlimited amount of beehives.
If they will take it, you just need to keep putting the sugar water to them.
Yeah, well, I did some videos out there in my bird bath showing you how to mix up. I call it my bee maker or my honey brood maker. When I change it, you can add a little bit of lemongrass and wintergreen to that, and that just supercharges them bees. They'll take it whether they want it or not.
Okay.
So the more you feed them, the more they're going to multiply.
I know somebody was trying to tell me one time, the old timer out here in the field, he said, "Oh, you're making your bees lazy, feed them like that." And I said, "Not from what I understand."
Yeah. There's a lot of people will tell you a lot of things out there.
That's exactly right. They didn't know how to tell you anything else but that. That's it. Yeah.
I've had people 10, 15 years ago tell me how crazy I was and all these studies that I haven't done that don't prove nothing. Well, everybody seems to be coming around doing a little bit more and more every year of what I'm doing. So maybe in another 5 or 10 years, we'll have a lot more beekeepers that realize they can make more bees themselves than buying somebody else's crummy stock. When you're buying somebody else's stock that the genetics is just run into the ground and you can't even work them bees, that's not fun to work the bees.
No, it's just when they get mad at you, they just mad at you, and it's hard to deal with them. Of course, you see the hair on my face or whatever. I don't like to get stung and get them in my beard. Other than that, I usually wear shorts and just a short sleeve shirt working them or whatever.
Well, I have a student in Texas. Well, I got 3 students in Texas, but he's got videos on YouTube where he's wearing 2 bee suits because the bees are so aggressive. He come over here and bought 25 nukes, and he bought 50 packages to redo his whole yard. And he took a video 3 weeks later of him in his shorts out there working the same bees.
Oh, hey.
And all the bees that were so mean, he moved them way back about 30, 40 acres back on the back side of his property, keep them back there. But he's slowly replacing queens in all of them. So genetics, I think, make a big difference.
Yeah. I've noticed that sometimes I've got one hive that got sort of hot on there, whatever point, and one of the little lizards was up there up under it. I found it. I said, I don't know how I'm going to get rid of him, but he was sure aggravating them pretty good.
Well, I've had talked about that on a video. I've had people say my hive is gentle today, and I go out there the next day, and they're real irritable. Usually you got a skunk, a lizard, or a little skank or something up underneath there. And sometimes you can even get ants. Those big black ants will aggravate a hive to where they get a little bit more defensive. That's nature.
I've noticed some ants under my top feeders, like what you put out, that they get up under that bowl. And is there any way I've tried to send them, and it doesn't seem to keep them out. They just seem to get up there somehow.
Well, there's the real small ants. They're the really small ones. Those don't really hurt nothing. They're just coming for a free dinner.
Okay.
Big black ants are the ones that might be a little more, they want to build a nesting there. So usually the cinnamon does good. And now if you have a problem with a lot of ants, you can, grease your stand up, where the legs come up, put old grease on it. Some people like to put them in cans of oil. That, cuts it down.
Right. Keep them from trafficking up and keeping them way out of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like I said, I've learned a lot from watching your videos because people where I'm at around here, they don't want to help you none. They just don't know how to help you. I think that's the big thing.
A lot of the old timers think it's a big secret. I mean, I'm trying to pass on as much as I possibly can to people, but I hate people that just they know something, but they won't share it with you.
Gotcha.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, what little I do know, I've had people ask me questions. You know what I mean? But I'm nowhere close to what you're doing. That's for sure.
Tell them to watch the Fat Bee Man. There's enough videos out there to help anybody now.
Yep, I've recommended that several times. Whatever, like I said, I've learned a lot watching your, like I said, making the wax, strips and so forth like that. It's just so easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I said, man, and you tell somebody about it, and they say, well, that's so cool. You know what I mean? I said, well, watch Fat Bee Man. You'll see it just like I did. It just works. And I was using my own wax to do it. You know what I mean? So it's melting it down and refining it and coming back and just. It's like I said, I didn't know about the water under it. That was something that I caught the other night watching one of your videos, and I said, "Oh, I need to start doing that." So I control the temperature a little bit better. It looks like, but I was doing it on top of her cook stove. And
well,
she's helping. She's making sure I don't mess up on her cook stove. That's for sure.
You better pay attention because you don't want to have a problem there.
Yeah, definitely.
The worst thing is flashover, and then the second thing, which you get caramelized wax. Your wax starts turning brown. That's an indication you're running way too hot.
Okay.
And the bees don't like caramelized wax as much as they like, the brown wax, black foundations. I took black foundations here that people brought over here and showed them. Black, it still comes out nice yellow. It might take you 2 or 3 times to run it through the water and bring it up to a boil, then strain it out and let it settle again. But you can get the color there right.
It cleans it up to pretty good.
Yep.
Yep. Well, when are you going to start feeding sugar water again this year? What roughly is there a date that you sort of hang on? I mean, I know the temperature's got a lot to do with activity and you know what I mean, and the flower and so forth.
We're starting to get a little bit of flowering going on here now, so I'm not trying to push the bees. I don't start pushing much until about the second week of March. So we're just getting ready. We're getting ready to go down and buy, 5 or 6 tons of sugar now. So we're getting ready. It's just right now. This is still February. We could still get a week of really cold weather, and I think it does more harm feeding the bees sugar water now and get a cold spell because of the moisture.
Does it hurt to put dry sugar out away from the hive, like in front of them, and let them just open feed it like what you would the bird bath?
Well, dry sugar open feeding like that is kind of a waste of time because you're going to have more yellow jackets attracted to it and wasps.
Okay.
Dry sugar will work inside of a hive if you've got enough of a cluster to create moisture.
Okay. I've been putting some, and I've got out of the 9 hives, I think I got 3 nukes that I split last summer and 5 frames, and they're doing good, and I've been putting some sugar right inside, on top of that. And they seem to manage it and go for it. You know what I mean? They're working it and have to put more in later.
Well, if you're making splits, you can 5 frame nukes.
Yeah, I did 1 hive last year and split 3 nukes off of it or whatever, and that's what and built them up pretty good. I had 1 5-frame nuke that had the full of honey above it, by the fall, and I just left them on it and the honey and let them work it all winter long, and they seem to be surviving pretty good. And I'd have the oxalic acid vaporizer and do that too. I think that's a good help. I believe.
Yeah, that never makes a big help.
I've never noticed for sure that I've got the Varroa, but it's just preventative to make sure I don't. That's what I'm thinking, Very inexpensive way to do it too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what the drug companies have fought for so many years because it's so cheap and it works. They want to sell you some garbage to put in the hive and end up paying anywhere from $2 to $5 to treat a hive. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got contaminated wax.
Hey, Don, we're getting really far behind with the questions here.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on and get some answers here, hopefully.
Pat is there any chance of killing a queen when dumping dry sugar over them?
If you dump it in the center of the hive, it's a possibility, but I like to dump my dry sugar in the back part of the hive. That way it'll fall down through it.
Okay, Tim wants to know, I know you don't reuse old comb, but if you did, could you use comb from a deadout that has little mold or dead bees still in it? Will they clean up the mold and remove the dead bees?
Well, they would, but I don't think I would put moldy frames in a hive. You're causing a fungal problem to start with, and then it's going to end up spreading around the hive. I would melt it down and start with fresh comb, personally.
Okay, Bill asks, how cold is too cold for queen cells overnight?
It depends on the cluster of the bees, but usually 55 is your target. You want to keep it above 55 degrees, because anything below that, you're going to have more bees to cluster around that queen cell.
Okay, Scotty asks, how much do you sell the medium nukes for, and how many frames should the customer get when they buy a medium nuke?
Well, they should get 5 frames, but as far as brood and stuff, a 5-frame nuke, medium or deep, is the same price, $175. And in a medium nuke, you should get anywhere from 2 to 2.5 frames of brood. You should have some honey, and you should have some pollen in there.
Beekeeper wants to know how high and how far to put a swarm trap from your bee yard.
You can put them all through your bee yard. I like to usually anywhere from 6 to about 8.5 feet is what I find works about the best. Anything higher than that, you have to carry a ladder around. I've had a lot of swarms that be right on the ground with old equipment. So it varies.
Okay. Mike, did you have any more questions for Don?
No,
call in?
Yeah, let somebody tell me how to get out of this thing.
Okay, I'll take care of you this time.
All right.
He'll show you the door.
I looked at an X up there and I clicked on that X. And...
Deadout calling back in.
See, these bees want to know, can I treat a 3-pound package for Varroa and how? Well, if you get a package of bees, normally you're not going to have much Varroa on it. But you could take oxalic acid, 1/4 teaspoon, mixed up with some sugar water in about a pint to pint and a half, and shake it up real good. And then you could actually mist the bees. Bump them down a couple times and mist them through the screen if you're really worried about Varroa. But as a rule, packages don't have a high mite count for Varroa.
Don, we had a question about where you're getting your essential oils from. Was that Loran?
I buy mine from Loran. I hate to give everybody a plug out there, but I find that they got the best oils, and if you tell them you're a beekeeper, they normally give you a discount on it. So
now, are those essential oils, or are those just the food grade quality?
No, they're essential oils, and you have to make sure that they're steamed oils, not aromatherapy.
Okay, all right.
Because you're just wasting your time if you do that.
Okay. Welcome back, Keith. You
Go
there,
ahead, Keith.
Okay, Don. You always talk about dumping a frame of nurse bees into a new potential hive with a queen cell.
Right.
How do you guarantee that the queen's not on the frame that you're dumping?
You have to look. I mean, that's silly, but you know, when you work your hives enough, I find the best way to find a queen is don't hold the frame straight out in front of you. Hold it down at your waist and tilt the frame outward at a 45. And if you're looking down on the frame, that queen's going to stand up. If you still haven't found her, go through the hive. When you find the queen, set that frame to the outside of the hive. That way you could go through the hive and you could grab 2 or 3 frames and check one frame into each nuke. And when I say shake a frame, look at the frame. If you work bees enough, your nurse bees look dusty. They're lighter color. They don't have good color definition. And if you shake a frame, you're going to get about 80% of those bees on that frame go back to the parent hive. So all you're really looking for is a nurse bees to keep that cell warm.
And your nurse bees are going to be on the uncapped brood, correct?
Not necessarily. If you got 2 frames of brood hatching out, you got a lot of nurse bees. They're going to disperse all around through that hive. The easiest way to tell them is they're just dusty looking. That's the easiest way to put it.
Okay. Thanks, Don.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Taro. You must have a question.
Not really a question. Just wanted to tell you thanks for the advice earlier this week. You really helped me out with that struggling hive. I did exactly what you said, and I released the queen today after I caged her and gave him the brood. I released her this afternoon, and I washed her for 3 or 4 minutes, and they were loving right up to her. Everything looked great. So hopefully they'll make it through the winter now, or the rest of the winter.
I mean, all I'm preaching is common sense beekeeping.
Yep, absolutely.
And when I have people that's just like you that call back or send me an email and say the simple thing worked.
Yeah.
You know, that's reward enough.
Yeah, it sure did work. I really appreciate it. So that
You're
was
welcome.
it. I didn't have a question. I may as we go along, but at this point I don't. Thanks, Don.
If you do, jump in.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Bye.
Joe's coming back on.
Hey, Don, how far are you out on queens?
How far am I out?
Yeah.
What do you mean, out or don't have any? Or
Well, I mean, can I still get queens for maybe the second week in April?
probably. I'm already booking into the last of April right now. We'll be starting probably in another 3 to 4 days. Start booking already into May.
I was thinking about sending me about 15 the second week of April.
I will work on it. We're building a lot of nuke boxes, those mini nukes right now. My son's working overtime.
Well, I can make queens, but I can't make them early.
Well, you're just like everybody else, you know. If people got queens early, they're banked queens, so I would be a little reluctant to it, you know.
Well, like I say, keep me in mind on about 15 of them.
All right.
Okay.
I will do.
Thank you, Don.
Okay. Somebody wants to know why nurse bees have lighter color. They just haven't, they're not of age. As they get older, the pigmentation starts to develop the color. So that's what I say. They're dusty looking. They're light in color. In the springtime, Nichols wants to know what the water ratio is. Springtime, when you're first getting started, a 1-to-1 is fine, but usually within about 3 weeks, I go 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. I'm putting a lot of sugar so I can build numbers fast. That's the easiest way to do it. Okay, James, I hope that answered your question. As time goes on, I try to make it as thick as peach syrup. If you open a can of peaches and poured it, you see how thick that syrup is? That's our normal mix that we use to build bees. That way they don't have to evaporate as much water out of the syrup, and they get more nutrition a lot faster. When setting legs in a hive stand oil, waste of vegetable oil, I wouldn't use vegetable oil because with vegetable oil, when the sun hits, it becomes rank. You have a lot of mosquitoes and you have other critters that just come right to it, and small hive beetles. Motor oil was probably the best, or old transmission fluid. Just get cans, large coffee cans or something, and just fill them up an inch or so of oil. That's a good barrier there. Scotty wants to know, heard a medium nuke should have 8 frames. Is this true? Well, they have medium 8-frame hives, so if you got all mediums, 5-frame hive, a 5-frame nuke is considered a mini hive. So you're going to have, on a medium, you're going to have 2.5 frames of brooding there, and then some pollen, some honey. The right way to sell medium nukes, I would have the customer come to your house, and I like to point the queen out to the customer, show the queen, make sure that the customer sees you see eggs in there, and that she's walking around in good shape and is not dragging or nothing. And then they can check to see the laying pattern. The laying pattern is usually what people are looking for. Well, Tim wants to know why not use thicker syrup all the time? Well, you don't have to. Early spring, there's a lot of nectar coming in, so you don't need to a one-to-one. They won't even touch it if there's enough nectar coming in. But I like to use the thicker syrup so you don't have to go back and feed as often. Any place in North Carolina gets second grade sugar. There used to be a place in Charlotte, but I think it's closed. So I don't know of any place up there. Terry wants to know, what about flow hives? I won't comment on that. There's no magic about it. Okay, anybody else got a question? Beekeeper, do you always feed a hive in the spring? I do. Some people don't, but I'm trying to make bees to make splits. So the more you feed, the more they populate. So if there's a nectar flow, they're not going to take the sugar. I'm trying to build bees in numbers up, so that's why we feed a lot. Okay, Todd wants to know, how many nukes can I make from one double deep? If it's a 10 frame double deep, you should be able to make at least 15 splits.
Hey, Worm.
Hey, Kate, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Okay. You a beekeeper?
No, I'm not a beekeeper, but
Oh, you're in a beekeeping chat.
sorry. All right, I'll go. You guys have a good day.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Apple Juice wants to know how to make slave with a big block of wax. Oh, salve with a big block of wax that's discolored, kind of dark. I would just boil some water, put it in a large pan, put some water in there, and bring it up to a boil, and then pour it off. Your darker wax and the darker particulate matter is going to settle, and it'll actually, the more you do that, it's going to clean itself up. I don't like to run wax through a strainer or a sieve or filters. I let nature do it. It'll separate itself out. Okay, Van wants to know, how much does a quart of honey sell for? Well, it depends if it's your honey or mine. I'm not really in the honey business, but we sell our quarts of strained honey or extracted honey for $20, and the comb in it, we get 25 and 35, depending on the time of the year and the type of comb we put in it. And usually the spring honey sells for a lot more. It's a lot lighter. So basically selling honey by the quart or pint is basically in your area. If you're selling Ross rounds will go for $12.50 to $13 for 8-ounce circles, which would bring about $25 a pound. Dwayne wants to know, he's from Northern Ontario. He loves what we're doing. Thank you for sharing. You suggest 8 frames produce better than 10. They're a lot easier to work, and bees built vertically a lot faster than they build horizontally. So I used to do nothing but 10 frame when I was younger, and as I got older, I learned 8 frame will outproduce the 10 frame because of the fact they build vertically faster than they do horizontally. Tim wants to know, why not use thicker syrup all the time? And we done answered that already, so we can go to the next one. And Pandex wants to know, do I sell packages or nukes only? We sell packages picked up here. We sell nukes picked up here, but I do have students that will ship to your area. Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Hey, Don, how many hives should have drone combs in it before you think about making queens?
How many frames should you have drone comb?
No, how many hives? You can't just have one hive with drone comb, I'm sure, to start thinking about making queens. You need to have more hives, don't you, than that?
Well, you could add drone comb if you're worried about the drone populations. If you're breeding excessively, if you're running 500 mini nukes and you're doing 500 to 1,000 queens a week, you're losing 40,000 drones.
Yeah, I'm just talking about early. I mean, none of mine started laying or making any drones yet. I just wondered if, in the early spring.
Well, they usually take care of themselves. You don't have to add. When they start to make extra drones, that's usually an indication that they're getting ready to swarm. That's why, that you look in the hive, you see them starting to draw out a lot more drone comb. That's their indication they're getting ready for a swarm.
Okay, but when you see drone in one comb, one hive, you ought to be able to start making queens.
Yeah. Well, usually when you start seeing a drone comb, you figure 2 to 3 weeks. After that, you should have good mating because the drones, they have to be mature enough to mate.
Well, I figured if they was capped, they'd already have that 2-week advantage and be out. But I don't know how long it takes them to mature up.
Yeah. Well, you should have drones going through the winter.
I've seen a few in the hive today, not very many.
Yeah. Well, as you go through them, you're going to start seeing more and more as the weather, and a lot has to do with the day and the night. As the days start getting longer, they start producing a little bit more drones. You'll notice it, almost weekly. You'll see a little bit more drones to each hive.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Okay. And Tim wants to know, if I'm not shipping bees, are there regulations you need to follow when selling for pickups? Well, it's a good idea to have your bees inspected when you're having them picked up, but if you're shipping them, you do need to get them inspected. You got to have an inspection sticker attached to the package or the Nuke box when you ship it. And Todd wants to know, do I sell packages or nukes only? Well, we sell queens, packages, and nukes.
I think we're all caught up.
Is that number right at the top of the page? We got 359 people watching.
That is subscribers. It looks like we only have 41 people watching us live right now.
Okay. I thought, holy moly.
Still up from last week. We were at 49 earlier, I think.
Yeah.
Abood is asking, is there a second rate sugar supplier in Chattanooga?
There used to be one north of Chattanooga. I don't know if he's still selling it. You'd have to check the paper up there.
Don doesn't know everything, people.
Well, I don't like to send people to different brokers. I like to let them find their own, because if the broker maybe has sugar one time and next time you don't, if they have a problem, they need to deal with the broker directly.
Dwayne asks, what are the regulations in your area for protecting your hives from bears? Can you shoot them?
Well, I mean, that's your livelihood. I suppose you could, but I wouldn't be telling people you're going to shoot them. I do have several customers in the mountains that have bear problems. And one of them actually uses it's like a metal ladder that they use in schoolyards that kids exercise on. He's got it about 8 foot high. He's got hives on top of that, and he greases the poles that they stand on. It's a little inconvenient, he says, but the bears don't get in his hives. So other people have used electrically charged fences and had good luck, and some haven't. Bears are hungry, they're going to get your bees.
Who's this? This is probably not a good call. Diego is asking, do you practice notching when splitting?
No, I don't practice notching. I've seen people that do it. I mean, there's a lot of ways to make queens. I think the best way to make queens is let the hive get overcrowded, and then they'll end up making queens themselves.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
Hey, Donald, are you owning bees?
Yeah, we're talking to Bee Chat tonight.
Yeah, man, I love bees. Where are you from?
I'm from North Georgia.
Ah, that's cool. So I didn't know that they create the bees like they create a queen themselves if they overcrowded.
Right.
So who is being chosen to be the queen? Is it like the strongest one?
Not necessarily. They'll decide that in either flight or when they go back in the hive. They will take a bunch of female larvae and they'll feed them royal jelly, and you'll have anywhere from a dozen to 2 dozen allotted queens. the strongest one will survive.
Okay, so they make they basically.
Oh well, not a big loss. Doer Bees is asking any suggestions on a swarm lure that can be purchased or a recipe to make a swarm lure.
The best swarm lure that you can get is when you have an old queen you're getting rid of, or if you're going to replace a queen, is to put that queen in alcohol, mash it up, and use that. Just dip a Q-tip in it and rub it around inside of a box. That's the best. The second best is synthetic way is to get some lemongrass oil and dip a Q-tip in it, rub it around a box, and put it in there. Now, as far as bait hives, I don't recommend using old comb. A lot of people say get some old comb and put it in a box somewhere, and you're going to get a swarm. That will work, but after about 10 to 15 days, if you haven't caught a swarm, you have caught every wax moth in the neighborhood. But now, if you put lemongrass in there and just new foundation, it could sit out there for 4 or 5 years and it will not get wax moth on it. The only time wax moth will appear on wax or comb is when the bees draw it out. Okay.
Let's see. I think we are all caught up then, it looks like.
Okay.
So it's 9 o'clock.
And anybody have no questions? We heading out, and we'll see everybody next week. And I appreciate your work, Liza.
No problem.
Are you learning something from this?
Always, yes.
Okay, good. You mean you don't have one question tonight?
No, I'm just trying to pay attention here and learn what I can.
Well, you got my undivided attention now. You should have thought something to stump me.
For the slow times, I'll come up with questions next time.
Okay. All right, then. Appreciate your help, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for watching.
All right, bye-bye.